Bro, come on, I've come from Newcastle to get you. Work that one out, how can I be scared? 250 miles to get you, so just remember what I've put into this to get you. You're a waste man, I'm gonna kill you, right? Don't worry, I'll have you by the end of the day. Are messages that David Rogers would send to his bitter rival only hours before he would eventually go on to murder him. But this arch nemesis of his, who he was so set on killing, wasn't some rival gang member nor a long-time friend turned enemy. Believe it or not, it was his own brother Thomas. We don't know all the details surrounding when and why the brothers had issues with each other, but what we do know is that it was sparked by a number of reasons, including the treatment of their mother. This led to Thomas leaving his home of Newcastle to relocate to Birmingham in July of 2020, where he went on to live with his mother, with David deciding to stay in Newcastle, and their third brother Samuel had relocated to Nottinghamshire. On a quick side note though, it isn't believed that Samuel made this move due to the family feud. As time passed and the feud continued, it started to become more intense, with threats of violence being put against David from his younger brother Thomas. On several occasions, Thomas had said that he was going to knock David out. Then in August of 2020, roughly 1 month after Thomas had moved to Birmingham, Samuel would have his windows smashed in at his home. Reports don't say who exactly did it, but we can assume that it was something to do with this family feud, given Samuel's role in the day of the events we're about to go over. You see, one day after Samuel's windows had been smashed in, David would send that final message saying that he'd have him by the end of the day, but we can assume that Thomas may have brushed it off, as he may not have assumed that his own flesh and blood would travel all the way from Newcastle to take his life. Again, we can't see the full message exchange, as Thomas's replies have been redacted and haven't been given approval for public use, but the outcome of Samuel's windows getting smashed in and this back and forth in the family feud would lead to this incident in broad daylight. On the 22nd of August 2020, both David and Samuel, along with two others from Nottinghamshire, spot Thomas in a car on Millpool Way, just off Bristol Road in Birmingham. The Vauxhall Astra that Thomas was in was being driven down the road, and then out of nowhere the brothers pulled in front of it in a Ford car and jump out. David and Samuel were both armed with knives, whilst a third person was armed with a sledgehammer. That third person would go on to attack the Astra but cause no physical harm to anyone inside the vehicle. Samuel, although armed, only recorded the ordeal, whilst David would stab his own brother once in the heart through an open window. They would then flee the scene, but for Thomas, he would sadly go on to be pronounced dead on the way to hospital after suffering cardiac arrest in the ambulance. But after fleeing the scene and leaving their younger brother for dead, David Rogers would go back up north to escape justice. He would reside in a hotel in Northumbria for a few days following the attack. When police would eventually track his general location to the hotel, they found a suicide note apologising for what he had done to his quote baby brother. Fearing that he might have killed himself, the search was on. He was eventually located in Woodlands in Holtwhistle days later. He was alive and well, so he was arrested and charged in connection with the incident. In fact, all four people who were in the car that day were charged with murder, which they all went on to deny. David told police he wasn't involved with the killing and he'd been elsewhere at the time, but later changed his account, where he accepted that he did have a knife and had unlawfully killed his brother with it, yet didn't intend to kill him or cause serious injury. Samuel would go on to accept that he was armed with a knife but was unaware his older brother had harmed anyone. But after a trial at Birmingham Crown Court, both men were found guilty, whilst the man armed with the sledgehammer and the fourth person were found not guilty. David had been found guilty on murder charges and was handed a life sentence with the minimum term of 18 years, whilst Samuel was handed a 9-year sentence for manslaughter charges. 30 seconds is what it took for a family to be broken forever, and the events of that day will change their lives moving forward. A mother who had 3 children in the blink of an eye has lost all 3 of them. 2 she'll never see again in her lifetime, and although 1 is getting released from jail, it just won't be the same ever again. Whatever the specifics are surrounding this feud, it really isn't worth it, especially with your family members. And if you ever feel it's getting like this with family members, then just know you can talk it out with each other. You are family at the end of the day. And look, everybody has issues, and you'd be pretty stupid to think that we live in a perfect world where families don't have issues with each other. But you should never let it get to a point where you feel like you want to kill another person. Because when it's all said and done, if something happens like what's happened in today's video, especially with a family member, you'll end up regretting it for the rest of your life.